It's a quiet Friday evening in a small Swedish farming community, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. A woman takes her dog out for an evening walk, just like she's done 1,000 times before. She never comes back. And when her body is found near the edge of a lake, the injuries are so severe that investigators are certain of only one thing: this was no accident. If you're the kind of person who likes winding down at the end of the day with a story that keeps you guessing right up until the last few minutes, then this channel might be a good fit for your nightly routine. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let me know your theory in the comments before you find out if you're right. But for now, let's get back to it. The farm is called Stora Mystiker, and it sits just outside a tiny village named Loftahammar on the southeastern coast of Sweden. It's September 5th, 2008, and the couple who live there, Ingemar and Agneta Westland, are having about as normal a day as you can imagine. They drink coffee in the morning. They watch some television. They talk about a road trip they're planning to take through Norway that fall. They're both in their 60s, retired, settled into the kind of quiet rhythm that comes with a long marriage and a small piece of land in the countryside. As the evening comes on, Ingemar goes out to mow the grass around the property. Agneta decides to take their dog, a small miniature schnauzer named Yoki, out for a walk. This is something she does almost every night. There's a lake near the farm called Frisksjön, and the path around it is one of her favorite routes. She heads out with the dog. Ingemar keeps working on the lawn. That's the last time Ingemar Westland sees his wife alive. As night falls, Agneta doesn't come home. At first, this isn't necessarily alarming. Maybe she took a longer route. Maybe she stopped to look at something. But as the minutes stretch into an hour, Ingemar starts to worry. He heads out to look for her, walking the same path she usually takes toward the lake. As he gets closer to the water, he hears something strange. He later describes it as a sound like several moose jumping into the lake at once, a heavy splashing, thrashing kind of noise. He doesn't think much of it at the time. He keeps walking, calling out for his wife. And then he finds her. Agneta is lying on the ground about 10 meters from the edge of the lake. She is not moving. When Ingemar gets close enough to see clearly, he realizes she has serious injuries to her head, to her legs, and to her chest. This isn't something that looks like she simply fell or had a medical emergency. This looks violent. Ingemar calls for help. The local fire department responds first, and at this point, based on the location near the water, they assume this might be a drowning case, someone who fell into the lake and was pulled out, or something along those lines. But once police arrive and examine the scene, that assumption falls apart almost immediately. The injuries don't match a drowning. They identify the woman as Agneta Westland, and it becomes very clear, very quickly, that whatever happened to her, it happened before she ever reached the water. Now here's where the case takes its first sharp turn. That same night, just hours after Agneta's body is discovered, police take Ingemar Westland, her 68-year-old husband, into custody. He is now the prime suspect in his wife's death. At this point, investigators have a working theory. Ingemar had been mowing the lawn that evening using a small riding lawnmower, the kind you sit on and drive around the yard. Given the pattern and severity of Agneta's injuries, especially to her legs and chest, police begin to suspect that Ingemar ran his wife over with this lawnmower. It's a specific and unusual theory, but the injuries seem to fit, at least well enough for police to hold him. Ingemar stays in custody for the next 10 to 11 days. He denies any involvement the entire time. Eventually, without enough hard evidence to formally charge him, he's released. But here's the thing. Being released from custody isn't the same as being cleared. He walks out of that jail cell still considered the main suspect in his wife's death. The investigation into him doesn't stop. It just changes shape. Meanwhile, police are trying to find the actual weapon they believe was used. If the lawnmower theory is correct, maybe there's something else too. Some kind of tool, something that could explain the wounds more precisely. Investigators actually drain a pond near the property, searching the bottom for anything that might have been used to hurt Agneta. What they pull out of that pond is an old axe, but after examining it, they determine it has nothing to do with the case at all. It's just an old axe that happened to be sitting in the mud. As autumn moves in, something happens that gives you a sense of just how seriously police are still taking Ingmar as a suspect. He's brought back out to the scene near the lake for what's called a reconstruction. Basically walking through the events of that night step by step with investigators watching closely. Neighbors and locals actually see this happen. Word spreads through the small community. And through all of it, Ingmar keeps saying the same thing. He didn't do this. Around this same time, there's another theory floating around in the village, a rumor really, that maybe Agneta was killed by a wild boar. Wild boars do live in that part of Sweden, and they can be aggressive if provoked. But investigators look into this and set it aside. To them, at this stage, it doesn't fit what they're seeing. And then comes maybe the hardest part of all of this for Ingmar. Agneta's funeral takes place with around 300 people attending to mourn her. Ingmar is there too as her husband, as someone grieving his wife of decades, all while still carrying the weight of being the primary suspect in her death. Imagine standing at your wife's funeral, surrounded by friends and neighbors, knowing that some of them, maybe many of them, believe you're the one who killed her. Months go by. The investigation continues quietly in the background. And then, in January of 2009, something shifts. On January 28, 2009, police officially announce that Ingmar Westlund has been cleared of all suspicion. A prosecutor named Kirsten Eriksson explains that the case against him had been weakening for some time, but the final decisive piece came from Sweden's National Forensic Laboratory up in the city of Linköping. Their analysis rules out the lawnmower as the weapon. Whatever caused Agneta's injuries, it wasn't that. So if it wasn't her husband and it wasn't the lawnmower, what was it? Now let me walk you through what investigators eventually pieced together, because the real answer to this case turns out to be something almost nobody considered seriously at first. In June of 2009, forensic technicians take a second look at something they'd had all along, Agneta's jacket, the one she was wearing the night she died. Earlier DNA testing hadn't given investigators any clear answers, so this time, technicians decide to examine the jacket specifically for animal hair and other biological traces, wondering if some kind of large animal might have been involved after all. By late September of 2009, wildlife researchers from the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences review the findings and conclude that it's highly likely Agneta was killed by a moose. Further testing on the hair and saliva found on her jacket confirms it came from a moose. To make sure, police even send samples to Canada for an independent comparison, and the results match. On December 1, 2009, police hold a press conference in the town of Västervik to announce their final conclusion. Agneta Westlund was killed by an enraged bull moose. Investigators believe that on her evening walk, her small dog encountered the moose, possibly its calf, and the animal reacted violently to defend itself or its young. In the chaos, Agneta stumbled while trying to shield her dog from the charging animal, and the moose attacked her directly. The heavy splashing sound Ingmar heard near the lake that night wasn't several moose at all. It was likely the single animal thrashing as it charged. It's believed to be one of the only documented cases in the world of a moose killing a human being. The story goes on to draw attention from far beyond Sweden. A book is written about it, Swedish television covers it in depth, and even Britain's National Geographic Channel travels to Loftahammar to film a documentary about this strange and singular case. Years later, in 2021, a Swedish network revisits the story again, and in that follow-up, the original pathologist involved in the case actually admits to making several serious mistakes early in the investigation, mistakes that helped point suspicion at an innocent man for months. Ingemar Westlund eventually seeks compensation for what he went through, for the days in custody, for the months living under suspicion, for standing at his wife's funeral as a suspected killer. It's a strange thing to sit with, that sometimes the most unlikely explanation turns out to be the true one, and that the line between a quiet evening walk and a tragedy can be thinner and far stranger than anyone standing there that night could have possibly imagined. That's it for tonight's story. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, take a look at the rest of the channel, because there are more stories like this one, with plenty more on the way. And if there's a topic you'd like me to cover next time, or any thoughts on tonight's story, leave them in the comments below. This was Sleep to Stories. Good night, and sleep well.